Hello and welcome to Kashmatics. In this video I'll show you how to calculate a percentage of a quantity. I'll be showing you a non-calculator method along with a very efficient calculator method. So grab yourselves a pen and some paper and a calculator and let's get started. So we'll first deal with a non-calculator method, and on this table on the left I've got three really simple percentages we can work out without a calculator. To work out 50%, all we need to do is divide by 2, and that's because there's two 50s in 100. To work out 10%, I divide by 10, and that's because there's 10 10s in 100. And to work out 1%, I divide by 100, and that's because there's 100 ones in 100. So if I want to work out 50%, 10% and 1% of 240, I can do it quite easily. 50% of 240 would be 240 divided by 2, which is 120. 10% of 240 would be 240 divided by 10, and that would be 24. And 1% of 240 would be 240 divided by 100, which is 2.4. Now you might not think it's necessary to write down your working like I've done here, but please do it because you never know when you're going to make a silly mistake, and your working is your backup, like your safety net, just in case you do make a silly mistake. Now I can use those three simple percentages to actually work out any percentage I like, but what I've got to do is think about how am I going to get to my answer. So let's look at this first one here. To get to 15%, the closest one out of that list is 10%, but from 10% I can quite easily work out 5%, and 10% and 5% actually do make 15%. So 10% of 80 would be 80 divided by 10, which is 8, and that means 5% would be half of that, which is 4. So to work out 15%, I would just work out 10% plus 5%, which would give me 12, so that's nice and easy. Now to work out 35% of 120, I need to think about how I'm going to build up my answer. So let's think what I can work out quite easily. I can work out 10%, and then from 10% I can work out 30%. Okay, so I'm almost there. Now I can also work out 5%, which is half of 10%, and then if I add the 30% and the 5%, I've got 35%. So let's just do that. So 10% would be 120 divided by 10, which is 12, which means 30% would be 3 of those. Okay, so 12 times 3 makes 36. And 5% is half of 10%, so half of 12 is 6. Now I'm just going to put a little arrow next to the ones I'm going to add to make 35%, and it's just those two there. So 36 plus 6 is 42, so that would be my answer there. Moving on to this next one, 7% of 180, I can work out 10%, from which I can work out 5%. Okay, so I'm just going to put an arrow next to that because I'm going to use that. But I'm 2% short, so what I can do is I can work out 1%, from which I can work out 2%. Okay, I'm going to put an arrow next to that one as well. Okay, so once I've worked out these two, then I can add those together. So 10% is equal to 180 divided by 10, which is 18. 5% would be half of that, so that would be 9. 1% is 180 divided by 100, which is 1.8, which means 2% would be double that, and that is 3.6. So what I need to do is add together 9 and 3.6 to give me 7%. Okay, so 7% is equal to 9 plus 3.6, which is 12.6. And this last one here, 73% of 140. Now there's several ways you can do this. You can work out 50% and then work out 10%, from which you work out 20% and then add 3%. You could do it that way, or you could work out 10% and then multiply that by 7 to get close to the answer and then add on 3%. There's several ways you can do it, but just make sure whatever you're doing is legitimately going to get you to 73%. So I'm going to do it using 50%, 10%, from which I can work out 20%, and then 1%, from which I can work out 3%. And I always put an arrow next to the ones I'm going to add. So I'm going to add the 50%, the 20%, and the 3% to give me 73%. So 50% would be 140 divided by 2, and that would be 70. 10% is 140 divided by 10, which is 14, which means 20% is double that. That's 28. 1% would be 1.4, and that's 140 divided by 100. And that means 3% is 3 of these, which is 4.2. So we need to add together 70, 28 and 4.2 to give me 102.2. Okay, and that is 73%. Okay, so there's 4 examples, nice and straightforward, and I'll give you some questions to have a go at in a moment. So here's 10 questions for you to try. Pause the video, have a go at these questions, make sure you do show you're working, and then play the video to check your answers. And I'm about to show the answers in 3, 2, 1, and there you go. Okay, so those are the answers. The first few were fairly straightforward, and then they did get a bit more difficult. And let's move on to the calculator method. Now you could use a calculator to do it in exactly the same way as I've shown you without a calculator, but that would be quite inefficient. So what I'm going to do is show you an efficient way of doing it with a calculator. And to do that, we first of all need to understand how to convert between a percentage and a decimal. So to get from a percentage to a decimal, we divide by 100, so a straightforward operation. And to get from a decimal back to a percentage, we need to multiply by 100. So let's just try and fill this table in. So going from the percentages to the decimals, I need to divide by 100. So 30 divided by 100 is 0.3, and if I'm going the other way, that means 0.7 is the same as 70%. 2 divided by 100 is 0.02. Now a common mistake people make is to write down 0.2 instead. Okay, and the opposite of that, so 0.09 times 100 would be 9%. And you can go ahead and just fill in the rest of this table. Pause the video if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in, and it shouldn't be too difficult. So this would be 0.37. This would be 98%, 0.045. Now this one here would be 1.2. This would have been 181%, and this would be 2.37. So hopefully you know where I've got all those green numbers from. So let's go over to the right hand side, and in that bubble we can see what it says. It says to calculate a percentage of a number multiplied by the equivalent decimal. So what all that means is you just change the percentage to a decimal, so 0.23, and multiply it by the quantity. Okay, so in this case it'd be 0.23 times 370, and what that gives me is 85.1. So I've done that in just one calculation, rather than using a non-calculator method, in which case I'd probably have to do 3 different calculations before I got to the answer. So this next one, 89% is 0.89 multiplied by 540, and that gives me 480.6. The next one, 125% of 3,800. Don't overthink it, just do what the method says. Change that to a decimal, so 1.25 times 3,800, and that gives me 4,750. And the last one would be 0.075. Just be careful with these ones. 0.075 times 1,200, which gives me 90. Okay. So just as before, I'm going to put some questions up for you to try. So here's 8 questions for you to try. Just be careful with those last 2. They may cause you an issue. But pause the video. Remember to show you're working, and then you can play the video once you're ready. So I'm about to show you the answers in 3, 2, 1. There you go. Okay, so how did you get on with those? Right, so that's it as far as calculating a percentage of a quantity is concerned. In the next video, we'll be looking at how to increase or decrease an amount by a given percentage. And again, I'll use a calculator and a non-calculator method to show you how to do it. So thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.